Good morning. Calling to meeting the Doña Ana County Board of County Commissioners. The time is 9:05 a.m. Is Ms. Cheryl Young available for our invocation? Good morning, Ms. Young.
I'm going to get this down to there. We pray to you, creator of this universe. We ask that we remember that all authority comes from you and that we recognize that. We ask that we use wisdom and that we remember that every decision we make affects future generations. We ask that you move through here, and we just give this to you in the name of the one who died for our sins. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Young. We now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, and may I have Representative Vlada lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amanda, may I please have the roll call of the commission members present and determination of a quorum?
Commissioner Murillo,
Present.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Here.
and Chair Chaparro.
Present. There is a quorum. All commissioners are present. The commission convenes as a Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. Mr. Macias, are there any changes to the agenda?
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. There is one that I want to note for the board. Under our work session portion, item number 11, dealing with the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. My understanding, although we anticipated for there to be a budget adopted by the board, that hasn't occurred yet. So I'm asking permission just to remove the item from today's work session and reschedule it at a specific time in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Fellow commissioners, is that with your approval? Everyone?
Chair.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Then agenda item number 11 shall be moved to a future meeting. We will now move forward to the pet showcase.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for those in the audience and they may be viewing, the County Commission takes an opportunity at each of its meetings to advocate for the adoption of animals from the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. The cat of the week is named Greg and is 3 years old. I'm a handsome and unique boy. One thing you might notice about me is that I'm missing a tail. The next thing you might notice is how much I absolutely love pets and how I'm 100% melt in your hands during a good neck scratch. I'm not the biggest fan of other cats. I want all the attention on me. I promise I have as much love to give as a household full of cats. And this cat, as you can tell by one of the pictures there at the bottom, practices yoga because you can see how they twist almost completely around. Our dog of the week is Jade, who's 2 years old, female. I'm a great companion. I always know sit and down, and I'm very attentive to my humans. I take treats very gently too, so help me learn some new commands. I do enjoy nice casual walks, but I will sometimes get a little excited and pull on the leash. I'm an affectionate girl who would be great in almost any type of home as long as it's full of love and affection. So we have both Greg and Jade and others available for adoption. And the next adoption event, well, you can go any day and every day to the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley to adopt an animal, or you can go to the Las Cruces Farmers Market this coming Saturday, April the 1st, and from 10 to 1 p.m. Madam Chair, thank you. And that is our Pets of the Week.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. We will now move forward to public input. Is there any member of the public that would like to approach the podium and speak to the commission? And please remember to sign our book to your left. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark V, District 1. Last time I was here, I told you that our history is being corrupted. It's being corrupted for political reasons. And the Lord sent the nun in after me to kind of prove my point. Thomas Paine was his chant, one of our founding fathers. Thomas Paine was not a founding father. He was a Brit. So afterwards, we went out into the lobby and I had a chat with the nun. And he told me man was good. And I said, well, what about Adolf Hitler? He said he was the exception. He said that God hates men. He said God hates homosexuals. I said, have you read the Bible? He said, yes. I said, have you read it cover to cover? He said, yes. I said, show me. He said, well, God also wants to kill 2/3 of the people in the world. I said, that's not in there. I said, in the Old Testament, there is punishment for, under the laws of Moses, for crime of capital punishment. And it was stoning in that day. In Revelation, which is what he brought up about the 2/3 of the people, in Revelation, the prophecy is that 1/2 of the population will be killed in the 7 years before Jesus' return. And that 1/2 of the population will die by war, pestilence, and famine. We have war, we have COVID, and we have famine, climate change. So it's things that are already here. So to Thomas Paine, well, in the Old Testament, other crimes that were punishable by stoning, this is under the law of Moses, capital punishment by stoning, child sacrifice, dishonoring your mother and father you could be stoned for, rape, lying with an animal, sleeping with an animal, and adultery. In the New Testament, they brought an adulterer to Jesus, and Jesus said, well, whoever's not guilty, throw the first stone. And they all walked away, and then Jesus said, I don't find you either, but go and sin no more. Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls, is what he's most noted for. Thomas Paine was a revolutionist, Thomas Paine was an agitator. Thomas Paine was an atheist. His obituary in the New York Citizen said he lived long, did some good, and much harm. He was befriended by Ben Franklin in 1774. He had no money, was broke in England. He arrived in the United States with letters from Benjamin Franklin 5 months before Lexington and Concord. He had a significant role in the war. He supported the war with money and writing. In 1787, he went back to Europe to support the French Revolution.
Sir, your time has expired. Are you almost done?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In 1787, he went back to Europe to support the French Revolution, and this is where he wrote about the separation of church and state, but he was talking in Europe to Europeans, and they had church and state mixed. He came back to the United States in 1802, and in 1809, at his funeral, there was only 6 people. He was not a founding father. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to approach the podium and speak to the commission? Good morning. And sir, when you're done, would you please sign our book?
Will do,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you. So my name is Michael Simmons. I've been here before. I live in Doñana County, La Mesa area. I guess to my friend Mark's point, founding fathers, if you actually go through the signers of the Constitution, you will find, yes, you'll have the Benjamin Franklins, you'll have the others that are claimed to be deists. I'm not sure those claims are accurate. But if you start going through the names, you'll actually find many seminary graduates, people from Harvard, throughout like the Black Robe Regiment, pastors and preachers, and all of that throughout the founding of the nation. So to claim that there is not a Christian influence on our beginnings is probably vastly mistaken. I don't remember how many signers there are, but the vast majority of them are strong men of faith throughout their time and works. So that, just interesting there. Another point of thing that I'm seeing is back on election integrity is that I'm seeing reports that the poll book software that is being used in New Mexico is not certifiable and is connected to the internet. I believe that's a violation of New Mexico law, and I raise that to your attention to investigate. And I appreciate your time this fine Tuesday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to approach the podium and speak to the commission? Hearing none and seeing none, we will move on to staff input. Mr. Macias?
There is no staff input.
Thank you. Then we will move forward to county elected officials' input. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. I bring to you a problem. You were kind enough a month or so ago to say if I have a problem or a concern, I could certainly make you aware of it. I made you aware of part of this issue is individually through email, where I indicated the time that it takes and the expenditure of human resource to get some of our positions moved or reclassified. And I was also pointed out that I sign all job descriptions, and I believe I pointed out to you how that comes about. My staff works diligently with HR to move these positions through. I don't know the extent of the collaboration or lack thereof. So what I will often get is a result that I don't necessarily agree with or that my staff hasn't been privy to. It will have been rewritten by those in HR. So let's move from that basis, which I've alerted you to already, on. 4 weeks ago, we attempted to have a sex offender registration coordinator position created. Bear in mind, as the sheriff, I am obligated to maintain that database. Currently, we have 400 registered sex offenders, and there is a little more involved in that than data entry because we are also tracking movements, all right? So if a sex offender is moving on a vacation from California to Texas, guess who gets noticed along the way? There's actually quite a bit of detail. Currently, we have a detective doing it. And we need that detective to move back into working casework. So we embarked upon this. We looked at other Class A counties. We determined that their pay range is $19.10 to $30.54. Okay, that's the range. For us, that's a B25 range. Now, let me tell you, here's an interesting fact. Do you know there are only 13 positions in the entire county at that rate? B25, only 13. So it's kind of hard to make the assumption that there's equitability involved when you only have 13 slots in the entire county that pay at that rate. Now, we based our request of B25 on Class A counties as well as what is required. So what is required? Requires data collection, okay? It requires contact with the public. And by the way, it's contact with the public some don't want to deal with. So let's think that through. Second of all, the position requires access and control to the registry. Okay, those are pretty serious level of responsibility, right? Because that's being monitored. By the way, this is all going through a state database. So we need folks that, number one, have some of these types of background coming in, but we also need them to be trainable because when they come, they're going to get a higher level of training to us. In short, we were denied this. HR determined that they would pay at a B24 rate only. Frankly, there's no viable explanation for why that is other than the catchphrase, equitability. Well, you don't have a whole lot of equitability when you only have so many of these in an entire 1,000-person county. So, by the way, there are slots, there may be 1 or 2 or 3 in those, but you don't have a tremendous amount of equitability to begin with. So that's my concern. We would like it at B25. We know our statutory requirements. We know what is required of law enforcement. We're trying to maintain our integrity on a statewide basis. I would like whoever applies to this job, I would like them to be trainable. I would like them to have the level of responsibility in their experience, and I would like to attract them. I would like you to also realize that in one of our recent job description or job interviews, we had pushed for a higher rate of pay. We had 50 applicants, 50. That tells us something. Let's draw that conclusion. We had interest. Thank you very much. I would look forward to you making a decision about this for us.
And Sheriff, if I may, you mentioned, and I was writing as you were speaking, you said there's 400 such cases in this county?
Sex offenders, correct,
Yes.
ma'am? Yes.
And for some reason, I just thought there were more because being at the courts, I experience it often, several times a week, actually. And that shocks me.
And I'm sorry, is there a question, ma'am?
Well, no, I'm just 400 as to what I thought, and
I guess our
I'm not
population
criticizing.
can
I
be
think I'm just
thrilled
shocked.
that we only have 400.
Yes, exactly.
Again, you have to realize, passing through our jurisdiction, they may only, look, if they come and stay with a relative for a month, that doesn't include, these are the set number right now. It doesn't include people in transit.
And if I may, Sheriff, just for the commission's information, I understand if there is a registered sex offender, they must register with every sheriff of every county in every state where they travel, any institution of higher learning, their employer, if they are employed at a school. And so I understand that this data collection is tedious.
Thank you.
So am I correct on that, Sheriff?
Well, it's tedious, and it's, as I say, we have a lot of state requirements to go with it. So there has to be some, not only the person collecting and interfacing with these individuals, but they're also moving information back and forth from the state. So, it's like we're a microcosm of the entire state of sex offenders.
And forgive me for not understanding this, but do they actually come to the sheriff's office to give up their data and their information? And then what's that process from the
Well,
sheriff's department?
currently, they do, they're at off-site. They come to an off-site location, they make an appointment, they come in, and the detective fingerprints them. There's certain data that they collect from them, they interview them. Now, let me point out, if it's found that they are not at those locations as promised, then that goes to warrant, that goes out, but that goes to a deputy or detective at that point. So all we're asking for is the person to do that data collection at the outset, not to pursue absconders or anything like that.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anyone have a question for Sheriff Stewart?
Madam Chair, I think I do.
Commissioner Reynolds?
So in other states that I've been in, the person that actually maintains this data has them come in, that's fine. But they also have to go out to the location to do the verification. It's not, you don't send an officer out to verify that they actually don't live next door to a school or, right next door to some other daycare center or something like that. But the person that gathers this data and manages them actually has to go out and do this for all 400 of them if there's some concern or if they think they might be lying. Is that correct?
Well, in most states now, or in most counties now in our state, at Class A, they have a technician doing the original data collection and interface with them as they're registering with us. As I say, if that proves not to be true, or we find information that they're not at the location, or we're doing checking on their information, that goes to a deputy or a detective.
Now, there's also a database that I could search to find out where they're at here in the county, right?
I believe there is a public access. I'm not sure of how much information is on that. I haven't looked myself.
Because I know that we had situations in other states where somebody was concerned that a sex offender moved in next to an elementary school. And they were actually there for like 2 or 3 years before we realized that they had the problem. And so we found them in a public database. I mean, I think this is kind of a serious issue, but maybe other people don't. Because certainly we have a lot of people who get determined to be sex offenders that we have to make sure that we still keep people safe in that respect. I don't have any other questions except for maybe HR.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. And Mr. Gooden, did I quote that correctly regarding a sex offender would have to report to a school of higher learning if he's or she's attending there, working at a school, and the sheriff of the county in which that person lives? Is there anything that I'm missing on that?
Madam Chair, I believe those are some of the areas. I mean, the sex offender registration statute is rather long and complex. And so exactly what they have to report, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but they do have to report to the sheriff that this is where we are. I think you're correct that if they're working at a school or attending a school, I believe they have to let the sheriff know that as well, and the institution. I do not believe, and I have to double check them, but I don't believe New Mexico prohibits a registered sex offender from living next to a school. I don't, and the sheriff might, she's not shaking her head too. I don't believe that is a requirement in New Mexico, or the prohibition. A lot of people want that to be, but it's not. So, but Madam Chair, I think basically, yes, I think those are the areas you've got, but it is a rather long statute. There are a lot of different things that have to be reported, a lot of times there, and their frequency. I'd have to review statute for any more detail, but generally, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gooden. Any other questions from any commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Sanchez.
Sheriff Stewart, just curious, what was the reason that
was given that they would not go to a B-25 and only had a B-24? Was it based off of job duties, or I think you've given us at least some understanding of why you felt it should have been a B-25, but what was that reason for not getting it approved at that level?
There was no rational reason. It was the phrase equitability. I don't know what equitability means.
And if it's at a B-24, how would that affect your ability to get a person for that position?
Well, I'm not, we wouldn't really know. However, we also want to retain the person that we are hiring because of the additional training that goes in. So, by the way, this is about $2 an hour we're talking about. Okay, this isn't a huge range of pay difference. And the question comes up often, are we budgeted for this? Yes, we are budgeted for this.
And you had and this was just a reclassification from positions that
It
you had
wasn't
open?
a total reclassification. Broadly, it is a reclass, but it was to create a position that we needed to fit the needs, our current needs, and we were able to do that because we do have the funds budgeted.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Madam Chair, I know this was a discussion we had at the budget meeting or the work session last 2 weeks ago. But in particular, I was just curious to understand, the questions that were coming up with how HR works with the different departments, how they do reclassification and so on. While it's not on the agenda for this meeting, I don't know if it might either we can have further discussion about it to understand in cases like this where the sheriff may have the budget and it's budgeted for it, what may drive these reclassifications in places or in a case like this where maybe it's more specialized for the sheriff's department or fire department or even some of the other departments like roads where we need a mechanical operator, some things that are specialized. How do we determine and compare it to other positions across the county when there is no other position that is necessarily like that?
Well, I think that it's a good idea that this commission understand that. And so, Mr. Macias, I'll leave it to you to place on a further, in a meeting, not at this meeting, obviously, because it's not on the agenda, and we're not going to deviate from the agenda. But if you and I can chat about scheduling it in
Certainly.
a couple of meetings. Thank you.
Madam
Anything else, commissioners?
I just want to add thank you, Sheriff, for coming and having a discussion with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Sheriff Stewart.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds?
thank you. I don't want, this is not for you, specifically, it's for our board. I think I think the process of actually understanding reclassification and classifications in general and how we compare to other Class A counties, I think is something this board should be educated on, because I'd like to better understand that. I know that I've talked to HR, and we did a survey about 4 years ago, I think it was, or 4 or 5 years ago, of the rates of pay that we were doing, and they had to pay a consultant to do that, and we came up with kind of the grid that we're working with today. I don't know if we've done one in the last couple of years, but certainly I think because some of this board hasn't been a part of that process, I think it would be great if we could have HR explain to us exactly how this is done. So we have a certain level of understanding when we are faced with these kind of opportunities, I should say.
I think that's fair.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, commissioners? Thank you. Any other elected official that would like to approach the podium? Representative Lotto, welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission. It's an honor to be here today. It's good to be home, away from the snow and the cold. Don't get me started about my opinion on the snow. Today, I just want to give you a quick update. It's not necessarily a legislative update, but I just want to thank two individuals who were very critical in helping me in my job at the legislature, getting the things that we need for Doña Ana County. The first person I like to recognize is Mr. Charlie Marcus. He's a lobbyist for the county. Mr. Marcus and I have a very good working relationship. He approached me with an issue that the county was having regarding the disposition of property. I introduced House Bill 512. It is now sitting on the governor's desk for, waiting for her approval, so I wanted to recognize Mr. Marcus and the initial ask of me to carry this bill and the follow-through. I just want to recognize Mr. Marcus. The second person I would like to recognize is our county manager. And Mr. Macias, I have a certificate for you from the legislature. Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, if I could read it.
Absolutely. Representative Lara.
The House of Representatives of the State of New Mexico, 56th Legislature, First Session 2023, recognizes Fernando Macias, Doña Ana County Manager. Whereas Fernando Macias served as state senator from 1985 to 2000, and whereas Fernando is personally the Doña Ana County Manager and has served his position in this position twice, from 1997 to 2000, and from 2018 to present, and whereas Fernando previously served as the Doña Ana County Commissioner and as Commission Chair, and whereas Fernando has demonstrated a commitment to excellence by implementing innovative solutions to complex issues and creating a collaborative work environment with stakeholders, and whereas Fernando's tireless efforts to improve Doña Ana County infrastructure, services, and programs have made Doña Ana County a better place to live, and whereas Fernando's dedication to Doña Ana County, its 850 employees, and its 221,850 residents is to be applauded. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the State of New Mexico that recognition be extended to Fernando Macias, Doña Ana County Manager, for his civic spirit and dedication to the employees and the residents of Doña Ana County. Mr. Macias. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission, I just want to thank all of you for your hard work. I want to thank all of you for your friendship and your dedication to the people of Doña Ana County. Consider me an ally, please. If there's anything that I can do to help you on my behalf, please let me know. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Lara. Thank you so much for meeting with me in the last couple of years, and thank you for carrying the bills that are so important to this county, and thank you for the extra $2 million for CRUA, and an appreciation for that
Surprise.
certificate for County Manager
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Macias. Thank you, Representative. Any other county elected officials' input? Thank you. Then we will move forward to commission input. Commissioners,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just did want to let the public know and those that are watching, I think we've tried to notify for a meeting tomorrow evening at the Radium Springs Community Center. It'll be from 6 to 7 p.m. At the community center, which is on Lindbeck Road behind the Family Dollar. We're going to be following up. This is kind of my hope with the meeting, was to follow up with concerns that were raised during the pre-legislative session meeting that was held by Senator Steinborn and Representative Jaramillo. We're going to be, I want to say thank you to the sheriff and her staff that will be attending as well. We've also got, I think, the state police that will also be attending, because I think there were concerns, particularly state police and NMDOT on concerns that were going with speeders and so on traffic on Fort Selden Road and on the Old Hatch Highway or Valley Drive as well. So we're going to be out there trying to, I think that's where we're trying to take the focus. For those that I have had some people reaching out asking about the Shalem Colony, proposed Shalem Colony Park, and asking on how to give input. And that's one of the things that I've we're sending a note this week now that I've been back from taking some vacation, working with the county staff to see how we can schedule another input meeting with Wilson and Company, who's the engineering firm that has helped with that proposed design. That way we can include the residents of these areas that didn't have a chance to attend the first information session. So again, that'll be tomorrow evening from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Radium Springs Community Center at 12060 Lindbeck Road. So we hope to see you all there, and hopefully we'll be able to have some good conversations with our partners with DASO and the state agencies as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Any other comments from any other commissioner? Then we'll move forward Oh, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. About a week ago, I had the opportunity and the honor to represent the county at the Bataan Memorial March at a White Sands Missile Range. And the march started about 6:15, so we had to be there at 5. But we had one person, 103, Mr. Devereaux, who actually showed up, who was actually in the Bataan March. There were 3 days of events, which I didn't make all of them, but really kind of cool that but the general came down from Denver and gave gold coins to all the people that were survivors in this area and the ones that showed up and their families the day before at the convention center and had a big event there. And then that morning, it was actually 37 degrees when we left Las Cruces. By the time I got across the mountain, it was 25. And even though there were roughly 30 people invited to sit with me, I think there were only 2 other people there because it was so cold. But it was still an honor to be there and have that ceremony because this is something that we really do want to remember, and this is the only place in the world that's actually celebrated. And they usually have about 8,000 to 10,000 people. This time they only had about a little over 5,000. But it was still an honor to be there and participate in that. And I think that anyone who can and anyone who'd like to, I mean, you're welcome to go any year with me. I've been, I think, 3 years now. And I think it'd be an honor for anybody to go out there and participate in that march. I think next year I'm going to try to do the 10K if I can. I haven't done it yet. Any questions? If there's no questions about that, I have one other item I'd like to discuss. Madam Clerk, you must have some insight into the future or something, because I noticed after your comment in the budget meeting last week that you want us to do a child care facility here in the county. I went and looked to see if we had any evidence of doing that, and as a matter of fact, we have 3 child care positions under community outreach that have been available and unfilled for over 3 years. So I don't know what happened with that. Can HR explain who is responsible for not hiring or for hiring or whatever? Because there's 3 positions. I have copies for you guys if you'd like to have them as well.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, those 3 positions are part-time positions in the Health and Human Services Department, and they are to support community centers for the events so that there is some childcare for community participants. Because there has been extremely limited community participation during COVID, the department has not posted to fill those positions.
For 3 years. There was 3 years ago, we didn't have COVID. So why does it take 3 years? Why don't we remove them from the list if we're not going to hire somebody?
Commissioner Reynolds, they had volunteers in those positions at one point. I don't know why the Health and Human Services Department did not post them. You would have to ask the department.
Well, they've been there for 3 years.
I understand.
Okay. Can you tell me why there's 69 positions that have been
Commissioner
posted
Reynolds,
for
that's
3
not on
years?
the agenda.
Madam Chair?
It's not on the agenda, Commissioner
Madam
Reynolds,
Chair?
and I'm not prepared to discuss it without
Madam Chair?
having been provided previous information so that I may give input.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Reynolds,
Respectfully, I still have the floor.
you do have the floor, but I'm telling you, if we're going to further discuss HR and the open positions, that particular item is not on the agenda. And if you wish to speak about it, I would be more than happy to chat with you. But
Okay, Madam Chair, Madam Chair, that's fine. Ms. Weir, thank you for your time. I would like to say, though, that we have 69 positions that haven't been filled for over 3 years. Thank you.
thank you. And I think we had that mentioned at the last work session, the open positions, and I believe it was 105. And I think that should have been brought up at that time, but it's not in the agenda right now. Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes. The current open positions for this year are over 250. Open positions 2 years ago were 150. So I think it's 275 currently. These are just the ones that were unfilled for 3 years. And I have the evidence.
So are these what you provided the commission, Commissioner
Yes, ma'am.
Reynolds? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else from fellow commissioners? Thank you. We will move on now to minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular board BOCC meeting minutes for March 14th, 2023?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Murillo. I have a second from Commissioner Sanchez.
Madam Chair, if
Any
I-
changes on the minutes?
Just a comment, just a real quick one. I just wanted to note, if you hadn't noticed from the meeting minutes, that I just want to give a shout out to Amanda, that she is now, if you go into each agenda item, there is a link to our YouTube video. So if there's anybody that, for any commissioner or anybody in the public that wants to see that agenda item, if you click on it, it takes you directly to that point in the meeting to see that agenda item. So I think that's a nice addition to the meeting minutes. And so just want to say thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. I did see that, and it's much appreciated. Any changes to the minutes, commissioners? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please, Amanda?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes. The motion carries unanimously. And we will now move on to presentations. Camino Real Regional Utility Authority Crew update. Mr. Westmoreland. Good morning, Mr. Westmoreland.
Good morning, Chair Lady and Board of County Commissioners and County Manager. I appreciate the opportunity, excuse me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and kind of give the County Commission update on where CRUA is right now with regards to water and wastewater infrastructure. Fernando, thank you.
And Mr. Westmoreland, while you're preparing that, would you please introduce
Yes.
the team with you this morning?
About to get there. Along with me today is Eric Lopez. He is the owner of Bredell Facilities, and he's a consultant to Camino Real Regional Utility Authority, and I believe he does work for Doña Ana County as well. And he's a vital member of our team, frankly. Very, very helpful. Does everybody have, will you have it on the monitor? So starting, Madam Chair and Commissioners. It's that
Let us
time
know
of
if
year,
you'd
I
like some
think.
more water.
Yeah, forgive me. Grant funding being sought for the ultimate expansion of the West Mesa wastewater treatment facility. At this particular time, we have a capacity available, but anticipation of future growth. It is apparent that we need to begin to seek funding to expand that plant. The second item is a 1 million gallon elevated tank, which I have applied for through the New Mexico Economic Development Department for the border, as well as a well rehab. That is has been in the works for about 3 years now. It is going through the channels being vetted. Once again, COVID has slowed down these type of efforts, but nonetheless, we're on it. Growth, under construction at the border. There is currently a arsenic treatment plant being built, a $1.8 million plant. Under design for the West Mesa Industrial Park is a 1 million gallon elevated tank, which Representative Lara has just informed us that the additional 2 million has been granted to CRUA to make it to double the size of it. It will be a 2 million gallon elevated tank, which will serve us well into the future, the needs of the industrial and commercial growth area. The fire booster pumps at the Doña Ana County well number 6 have been upgraded internally. We're currently meeting the fire flow needs for the projected growth of the Jetport. We will continue to work and upgrade those facilities as well to keep pace with the anticipated growth. The New Mexico Finance Authority, Colonias, approved receiving revised funding for the wastewater treatment facility as well as a vacuum station. And right now, those grants are pending approval based on the extension of the joint powers agreement, which Manager Fernando Macias, as well as the City of Sunland Park, are working towards. I anticipate probably something over the next few months of being accomplished in that effort. Then we can reignite, reinitiate that effort with the New Mexico Department of Finance and Colonias. A private sector new lift station is being built for the commercial and residential development on McNutt Road to approximately $1.5 million. Well 14 on the West Mesa was put in and has been in operation for approximately 4 years now. That was an $8 million grant from the state of New Mexico. The North wastewater collection improvements are being funded to the tune of $4.5 million from NADBank and EPA, and an additional $4 million was approved by our board recently to complete that project, for a total of $8.5 million. Discuss the waste. Let's see. I think I'm going the wrong way here. There we go. Forgive me, everybody. Okay. CRUA has engaged the services of CDM Smith to put together a financial plan for CRUA, which is also a requirement of Colonias and New Mexico Finance Authority. And in addition to that, it will be required by Colonias for the board to consider a rate increase within the next 2 years, by 2025. That is not anything that has to be dealt with now, but the resolution depicting this for futuristic action will be on your next board member agenda for CRUA. That is about the summation of it for the moment, Madam Chair. And forgive my voice. I promise I don't smoke, but I sound like a smoker today.
Thank you, Mr. Westmoreland. I have a question. You talked about the developer-funded new lift station at McNutt.
Yes.
Was that the same developer that came before the commission for CRUA 2 months ago? And I can't remember.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hagan.
Hagan.
And you approved the MOU, the joint powers effort with mutual memorandum of understanding for that purpose. And they are moving fast. That will enable CRUA, though, to divert our wastewater to the south plant at Sunland Park and or the north plant accordingly. So it will actually benefit, that infrastructure will benefit CRUA in the long run as well.
And so all the equipment that he will be providing will be new generators, new everything. Nothing will be second rate for our residents, is that correct?
Yes, and it is also being monitored and inspected by CRUA staff as well as Bohannon Houston, our wastewater on-call consultant, engineering consultants.
And they're very much aware of that. Everything will be brand new on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I do have a question regarding the arsenic treatment plant at the Santa Teresa border. I know that we get updates every month from Brydell regarding the arsenic that is present in the water. Are we doing a little better on that?
Yes. In fact, the Santa Teresa's community arsenic treatment plant will be back online this week. The West Mesa will soon follow that. This plant that we're speaking of will be online. What do you think, Mr. Lopez? The border arsenic treatment plant within the next 6 months? Within the next 6 months, it'll be commissioned and put in operation.
All right.
In order to maintain compliance.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Westmoreland?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Sheldon
Mr. Westmoreland, thank you so much for coming today and presenting to the board. I do have a couple questions. Great presentation. Thank you for the information. Two of my questions, one of them being with the growth of Santa Teresa and the industrial park, Jetport, all that. How often are you meeting with those partners down there, whether it be with the Jetport, the industrial park? And then also, are you meeting with Movida on a regular basis as well?
There is BIA has formed an infrastructure committee, which I, of course, am a member of. Mr. Macias and I have just met recently on this topic, and he has plugged in the airport manager, and we will be scheduling regular meetings for that effort.
Okay, and in the past, have you been meeting with them on a regular basis?
I have met with these people multiple times over the years, yes.
Okay. And then my second question is about the UDC, which I know that we've talked about several times as a board lately. Do you have a game plan and or a timeline of when that's going to be taken to your board? And maybe, Madam Chair, you can talk about that as well to get that approved.
Well, and I don't mean to sidestep you, Mr.
No, go ahead.
Westmoreland, but as Mr. Westmoreland had mentioned, the County of Doña Ana and the City of Sunland Park will be moving quickly into tweaking the joint powers agreement for CRUA. And we had hired Robert Garza, was it last year, to provide different options regarding how CRUA was going to change to better serve the residents down in the southern part of the county, hopefully in the next 2-3 months, Mr. Macias?
Madam Chair, if I could just perhaps respond to Commissioner Sheldro's question. The UDC isn't applicable within the jurisdiction, CRUA's jurisdiction. And that was by the Joint Powers Agreement when it was first entered into almost 20 years ago. Basically, it gave the Planning and Zoning Authority to the CRUA board. So one of the points of discussion related to a new Joint Powers Agreement is the option for the county to basically take over the full responsibilities within the county jurisdiction and basically bring the UDC or use it to substitute what is the old planning and zoning scheme that the county had previously that is still being administered within the CRUA area. So that is a topic related to discussions between the county and the City of Sunland Park in order for it to be an issue that we can address during the discussions related to the modification of the existing Joint Powers Agreement. So yes, that has been one of the main goals from the county's perspective to basically have the UDC administered throughout the county areas, including what was not given away, but what was negotiated away 20 years ago in terms of giving CRUA the planning and zoning authority within their jurisdiction.
Awesome.
If I may elaborate slightly on that, from an executive director perspective, I have no problem with that. Like Mr. Macias said, it had wound up within our jurisdiction some almost 20 years ago, and it just makes sense to have it under the county and one entity overseeing it and one code being administered.
Agreed, Mr. Westmoreland. I think it would be uniform and fair for everyone that way.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Westmoreland? Any comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Thank you. Mr. Westmoreland, I think you had mentioned earlier with the operations being taken care of by a contractor. Is there any opportunity for CRUA to look to take those over internally? Because generally when you have a contractor that does services for you, you pay a premium for that. I didn't know if there's opportunities to potentially save money and redirect for operations within CRUA by looking to bring all your stuff in-house.
Well, when I mentioned operations, it was with regard to construction oversight in order to make sure that the new lift station that's being constructed does indeed meet all of CRUA's standards and requirements. Because as a result of CRUA staff, Mr. Lopez goes out Ernie Carranza goes out as often as they can, but they cannot be there as often as I would like somebody to be there, making sure that no corners are cut.
But I think as you mentioned, but I believe Mr. Lopez is a contractor as well for CRUA, is that not correct?
Oh, yes, he is, they assist in all levels.
And I know, Mr. Lopez, having been on the CRUA board for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Before Commissioner Chaparro, I just was wondering, like I said, with all due respect to Mr. Lopez, could that not be a position that becomes internal and those types of operations that become more internal versus continue to be contracted out? To save money and potentially reallocate and those funds for CRUA.
That would be possible. That would have to be something that would be looked at and go out for an RFP perhaps, or internal hiring, a double level 4 operator. But at this juncture, I don't want to lose Mr. Lopez.
Yeah. The other question I had, and speaking of your experience, I think we had a discussion just happened about HR, but you utilize support services from the county, correct?
I'm sorry, say that?
You use support services from the county?
Yes, we contract with the county for miscellaneous services.
What's been your experience with HR and the ability to fill positions? Do you have a length of time that it's taken to fill your positions?
Actually, with regards to my interaction with HR in the effort to fill vacant positions has gone pretty smoothly overall. They advertise on a timely basis. We alter job descriptions as necessary, when necessary, and I find them very responsive.
Do you know how long it takes for you to fill positions?
Much of that depends on the applicants, if there are any applicants for a particular position, and if so, how many. And so if things go smoothly, you can get somebody with get a position advertised and new people in within 60 days.
And then, but then you mentioned you have other positions you can't fill. So are those still vacant positions?
Post-COVID, we have had difficulty, like probably many areas, with finding people who want to apply. But we keep advertising, we keep reaching out, and we are beginning to see a much more vigorous interest in our office positions and field positions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Westmoreland. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'd like to address very, very quickly, if I may, Commissioner Reynolds, because it'll go if I don't address it right now. Regarding Mr. Lopez's interaction with CRUA, and if Mr. Lopez, if I may just have you come up to the podium, because you and I have had a couple of conversations during our meetings regarding operators and where they're going and the difficulty in keeping even you, and I know you're very dedicated to CRUA, and I know you're very dedicated to the county, so maybe it could be explained to the commissioners why it's challenging at times to keep technicians that are very familiar with wastewater and water.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Eric Lopez, I've been in the water wastewater field for over 37 years. In my initial years and even as management, I could bring in operators to fill every single position I had. At this current time, and probably 5 years ago, we started to see a shortage. The shortage started going to the oil and gas industry. It started going to Los Alamos National Lab. At this current time, there is approximately 50% reduction in wastewater and water operators throughout the state and throughout the United States of America. The reason for that, it's not a glamorous position. The pay isn't as great as other facilities, as other jobs and careers. So one of the things that we're seeing, in fact, I sat before the New Mexico Finance Authority Board in a roundtable discussion, and the certification office was at 2,600 certified operators back in 2018. Now we're down to about 1,730 operators in the state. Every year that an operator retires, there is no way for them to come back into the field because of the para restrictions that have occurred through the state of New Mexico. So those operators that retire leave the field for good. So one of the things that you're seeing, Mr. Westmoreland, I started there in 2015 prior to Mr. Westmoreland, and one of the things that we did with then Ms. Sue Padilla and Mr. Gilbert Mesa, who's a crew executive director, we went ahead and looked at pay and actually added an incentive that every certification that they got, they would get 2.5% raise after their initial certification where they had applied for the job. I can honestly tell you that since 2015 to today, we have no new operators at CRUA. Now, they have come into the field, they've come to work for CRUA, but we've actually lost them based on other career goals. We lost several to Arizona that this gentleman here, two gentlemen here were getting paid, I believe, $16, $17 an hour, which is pretty decent. They went to Arizona and got $35 an hour with the same certification. So the reality of it is it's not a Doña Ana County issue, it's not a City of Las Cruces issue, it's not a City of Albuquerque issue. It is a United States issue. Just this morning, I heard of an issue in Philadelphia where there's contaminants in the water system that they're going to look at addressing. Those are problems we're having all over the place. Can we raise the pay? Most definitely. But can we raise it as high as oil and gas? Can we raise it as high as Los Alamos National Lab? We definitely can. So one of the things that I've always recommended is bringing in people with no certification, giving them the training, giving them the ability to move up. But it's difficult because in human resources, and I've worked with human resources for probably 25 years in my management, it's difficult to put a person in a position that requires a requirement that requires a experience. And in order to do that, you got to start them very low to put them in that position so that you can groom them to become operators. So I think one of the things that I felt very confident when I worked with the City of Las Cruces Human Resources Department is we would look at internships, not necessarily with experience, but with the ability to bring them through the ranks so that they could become that operator. And we had that success. I can tell you right now, the City of Las Cruces has an internship where the internship, they go through the water technology program. They get the school paid. They get a stipend. They work 20 hours a week. They work more hours during holidays or during spring breaks or whatever if they want. And at the end, they commit 8 years to the City of Las Cruces of employment. So those are some of the things that are occurring, but sadly enough, most utilities don't have the funding available to do that. But the reality of it is just like the county has experienced, the City of Las Cruces and CRUA has experienced, you'll get somebody today and tomorrow they're gone because it's not a glamorous position. Hope that explains a little bit of our problem in the.
I understand the problem, and but the reason I ask is very simply, not so much as, I guess that is part of the problem. I think that's what we hear from even the sheriff earlier is when you're trying to recruit somebody and we have pay that's lower, then I think the question becomes how do you, and I know CRUA's budget is different than the county budget, so I can't speak to that. But what I can curious about is your interaction as CRUA with HR in being able to create and, with your, or when you're creating postings and filling vacancies, have you been able to? And I guess that answers my question, Mr. Lopez, that you're not able to fill these positions. So I guess my question becomes is how is HR working with you all to get those positions filled or getting creative? Because I think as you've just discussed, there's opportunities as the city, I mean, we can look, like you said, the City of Las Cruces doing an internship program, certifications, all these different things that can come to mind that might require a commitment or I don't know. I'm not in HR, but I can say, as you mentioned, there are examples that we can look at. And so that's what I'm curious to see, because my question goes back to the questions I had last week for the county operations. What is HR doing to help fill positions? And just happens that you're another organization that is needing to fill positions. So that's why I wanted to ask about HR. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Westmoreland and Mr. Lopez.
And thank you for answering that question, and I think it's bearing fruit for a future meeting regarding HR and vacancies and hiring and what Mr. Macias will be putting on the agenda in a future meeting. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Westmoreland regarding CRUA? Commissioner Reynolds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Westmoreland, since you're giving up the control of the code, the UDC code, basically, in your area, can we give you something else to do? I mean, because, like, maybe take over our utility department? Because I know we've been struggling with that for a couple of years. Just something I think as we're doing the JPA, we should consider, because we've been really struggling with utilities, but you guys have been doing a great job of it for several years, I think. How many of you have been doing it?
Oh, going on 8 years there, but the effort that CRUA staff puts towards the land use element of what we do has been contracted basically to Doña County Community Development Department. They handle all applications for zoning, plating, et cetera. And then we have an ETZ CRUA board, like a P&Z, if you will, that vets those and makes a recommendation back to our board for their approval of the various projects. That's about the extent of our interaction. In other words,
Not much responsibility then.
the county has really minimized what the staff that we need to hire, if you will, because it wouldn't warrant the amount of work we have, the amount of applications we would be entertaining wouldn't warrant hiring these full-time positions anyway. So, and the county, of course, has them full-time. So that particular element has been a very good marriage. It's worked well for CRUA. It's worked, hopefully, well for the county.
And the utilities?
Well, the utilities is really once removed and aside from that land use application and approval process. We are, at the end of the day, charged, of course, with supplying water and wastewater to those particular potential developments. But at the level of entertaining applications, that rarely comes into play.
I'm thinking more about billing, because billing is what we're struggling with. At least that's my understanding. And getting a department going there successfully for billing our utilities here in the county. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know we've had several people in that position, and we currently have a temporary person. We're looking for permanent. You have something for us here?
Thank you. And I think that's a different question, Commissioner Reynolds, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the CRUA question, because I know CRUA has its own billing, and so I think I'm confused by the question, quite frankly.
Well, my opinion is, and I could be wrong, I mean, obviously, if Assistant County Manager would like to say something and correct me, that's fine. I know that in talking to my constituents who are actually getting billing from the county, we've had several problems with the billing process, including late bills, overcharging, undercharging, a bunch of things like that. And since they've been doing it for 7 or 8 years or whatever, how long he's been doing it, then I thought they may be able to bring some expertise to the table through this JPA that we currently haven't been able to maintain here at the county. That's all. Just not even saying we have to do it. I'm just saying, as part of the JPA discussion, I think it would be worthwhile to figure out if they can help us.
And Commissioner Reynolds, are you referring to constituents under CRUA or another water utility? Because, like Anthony has their own water system, CRUA has their own water system.
In this case, we're talking about sewer system specifically at this point.
In the CRUA area?
In Chaparral, as an example.
That is outside our jurisdiction, that's Doña County. But if I'm understanding the question, you're inquiring whether perhaps CRUA could help manage or assist in the billing effort?
I'm just throwing it out there because we're going to redo the contract, the JPA, and if there's something that we need help with that you could help with, and then, again, I may not be up to date on that information. I'm getting a nod over there that says I'm probably not knowledgeable about the current situation. So So it's, looks like it's not going to be a deal.
And if I may,
thank
Commissioner
you.
Reynolds, at least for CRUA, I'm not sure about Anthony because I'm not involved with Anthony, but with CRUA has their own billing system there on site. They have their computers there on site. They have the water that is measured on site. They have staff that goes out and depending on which meter, and it's the Metron or the Banter, is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Lopez? And how they're checked, whether they're checked manually or it's checked by the cloud. But the billing does come through the county. However, CRUA is responsible for collecting and billing the customers appropriately and accurately.
Yes, we collect the data, we prepare the billing, and then Doña Ana County mailroom mails them out for us as part of the contractual arrangement. And frankly, it works well. With regards to adding in or including Doña Ana County utilities, that's not anything I've ever even thought of. I don't know that.
You're outside of your jurisdiction, you can't do it.
Yeah, what you're really
it's-
saying is it's out of the box thinking on my part, that's probably not going to work. All right, well, thank you for entertaining the question anyway.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner Sanchez?
Just for what it's worth, Commissioner Reynolds, and I know, I believe our utilities department just recently did switch over to Invoice Cloud, which is a similar process or a similar system that CRUA utilizes. I think we've gotten that feedback, seen it with CRUA, so that's something we did transition to for our county utilities as well. So that provided another, obviously they can come in and pay here, but provided another opportunity or another option for
Can pay online.
to pay online or over the phone or whatever it may be. So, yeah. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Any other questions for Mr. Westmoreland? Thank you. Yes,
Madam
Commissioner
Chair,
Murillo.
On the arsenic treatment plant, what was the total cost?
The one at the border that's under construction, 1.8 million.
And it's under construction?
Yes, ma'am.
When will it be finalized?
It will
An
be
estimate.
completed and commissioned and put in service within about 6 months.
Okay.
Yes, it's moving along rapidly.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Westmoreland or Mr. Lopez? Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you
Westmoreland.
all very much. Appreciate the
Mr.
opportunity.
Lopez. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair, if it's a desire of the manager and the county commission to have an update a couple times a year or what have you, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to come get on the hot seat.
And you know, Mr. Westmoreland, I think that's very appropriate because
Yes.
when the commissioners sit on a board, especially CRUA, it's taken time for me to understand how it works, and this is what, my third year on CRUA, and I think I finally got it. But
It doesn't
yes,
seem
the
like it's been
update would
3
be very
years.
necessary.
Time passes so quickly, but
Thank you, Brent.
thank you
Thank
all
you.
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando.
All right, we will now move on to the consent agenda. Is there any item that any commissioner would like to pull at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items 3 through 9.
Thank you. I do have a motion from Commissioner Reynolds to approve consent agenda 3 through 9. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Murillo. Any other discussion, any comments, commissioners? Amanda, may I please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We will now move forward to correspondence. Agenda item number 10, Amanda?
Aurelio Lopez versus Doña Ana County, Scott A. Bernard versus Doña Ana County, and Rebecca Laferman versus Doña Ana County.
Thank you. And I'm going to request a break at this time before we begin the work session budget presentations. Is 10 minutes sufficient, commissioners?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Point
Commissioner
of
Reynolds.
order. Since we are calling this a separate session, should we close this session and start a new session or because this is a special work budget presentation session. Or is this the same session? I'm trying to figure out, because when we did last budget meeting, we did it after a meeting, but we separated the videos between the board meeting and a work session. So was that two sessions, or should that, since it was an item on the agenda, should it be one video? I'm confused here.
Mr. Gooden, I seek guidance.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, how the video's done is irrelevant. I mean, really, we could put them together, you can separate them. I think, had some discussion with somebody about this, and I think they were going to go ahead and join those other two videos together, I think. I'm not certain on that, but it's all one meeting. So whether part of it's a work session presentations, it's still part of the meeting that's taken place. And I would suggest that we just have all the video put together.
And Madam Chair, I agree with that, Mr. Gooden, because they do have numbers on this agenda, which means it's currently part of the same session. But in the last meeting, they had numbers as well, but we separated the video, so I was just confused as to whether we should have gone to a different session. So this is fine. Let's keep it one session, take a break, and I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. And now that Amanda is linking everything and making it beautiful, I don't think we'll have an issue. All right, we're on a recess right now, 10 minutes on a break. It's 10:20. We'll be returning at 10:30. Thank you.
Oh, she went fast.
And plus, I don't know if you noticed he was a little shaky today.
So I'm waiting for them to. Okay. Right now, I'll have first sign it. You're welcome.
Hello. How are you?
I like your socks. From over there.
Lucia, what's up?
I was laughing. It was quite funny. Thank you, sir. I had a good laugh. I don't.
Wait, am I supposed to sign stuff? Espera, hasta para acá, hasta para acá.
hi, how you doing? You know, and it caught on to me after a while. People always ask me how I was doing and then ask how the weather was. And what I didn't know is that, and I found out about 4 months later, is that I evidently looked like the TV weatherman, the local weatherman, and everybody thought that I was the weatherman. I must have one of those faces.
We're back in session. The time is 10:32 PM. Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to work session budget presentations. Number 12, Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority update regarding the fiscal year 24 funding request from the county. Mr. Hugo Costa Jr. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, and County Manager Macias. Thank you for having me here. Again, Hugo Acosta Jr., Executive Director, Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority. I believe that the presentation that I'm going to give you today is also included in your hard copy packet for you to follow along. If I could start with the first slide, yes, that one, thank you. First of all, this is our expenses and revenues, and it shows the current fiscal year, 22 to 23, in that middle column, and then the column just to the right of it, 23-24 is the budget that we are proposing for this coming fiscal year. Now back to the next slide, please. Right, thank you. This budget has been reviewed by the MRVDA board in a preliminary budget session at the beginning of this month. It will be presented for adoption in April, the second Wednesday of April. But these are the figures that have been reviewed by the board. If you look at first at the revenues, you'll see that the most notable is that the total expenses that we are anticipating for the new budget is almost level funded. It's a 0.08% decrease, actually, a decrease of $5,000 over under the budget that we're currently operating from. On the revenue side, one of the main items of note for the current budget is that we used almost $1 million, $915,000 from our fund balance, which our fund balance is a capital reserve fund that we maintain, to offset the budget request from the municipalities. And the reason we did that for this current fiscal year was because we had a major contract negotiation that was a 3-year contract negotiation that increased salaries to be competitive in the local community. And then also we underwent some major cybersecurity infrastructure projects that took place this fiscal year and are coming to an end by June of this year. So that it wouldn't be a huge budget impact, the board approved that we use $915,000 from the budget. Going into this year, we're using only $620,000 from our capital reserve. And this is basically to ease the budget back into a contributory budget where we're not utilizing a fund balance. We knew last year we were going to take a big hit, so that's why we took the $1 million to utilize it. If we hadn't utilized any fund balance for this year's proposed budget, we'd be looking at about a 33% increase in our request from the community. So to ease back into that, we don't want to kick the can down the road, but we want to ease back into a budget where we're not pulling out of our fund balance. So this year we proposed only taking $620,000. So this budget also includes the contractually obligated salary increases that were negotiated. It also includes the $620,000 fund balance to offset the budget assessment increases. And just to note that the salaries and benefits of the MRVDA budget, about 81% of that. If I could have the next slide, please. This slide shows the contributions that we request from the member communities. And it's broken down that by our JPA mandates the way we do the budget requests. what we do is first we decide how much money we need in the budget, which this year is 5.8 million that we're requesting. And then we take the number of calls for service that we dispatch for each community and divide that by the budget request, and we come up with a price per call. For the current budget, the price per call is $15.85 approximately. And for the coming budget, it's slightly increased to $15.93 per call. And that's because if you look at the call numbers in all the communities, the call volume that we dispatch went up. In the county, it went up by 10%, 10.4% over the 2021 fiscal year. So if you look at the blocked area with the red block, excuse me, the county request we're asking from the county is $2,135,086. That's a 6.66% increase over the current budget. So the increase is $133,316 over our current operating budget. And by the JPA, after the contributions from Messiah Hatch, Sunland Park, and Anthony, the City of Las Cruces and Doña Ana County divide the remainder of the budget request, 53%, 47%, the county paying 47%. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Costa? No questions? Well, hearing none, and...
Madam Chair, just
Yes, Commissioner Sanchez.
just so that way I understand, so the agency contributions, is that in addition to the total revenues, or is that part of the total revenues? So the 4.7, or the, I guess in this case, the 5.026 million of agency contributions that's coming up for the next fiscal year compared to the total revenues of 5.816 million, is that in total, or is the agency contributions basically that, almost all but about $800,000?
Commissioner, you're correct in noting that on the first page, the revenues, those are revenues aside from the contributions from the municipality. So those are other sources that we get it from. For example, alarm revenue, we monitor the alarm ordinance system for the City of Las Cruces, and so there's revenue generated from that, so that goes in to offset the budget. So the requests we're asking from the municipalities are after we take that $790,000 off.
Okay, got it. I was trying to, when I saw the second slide, it just kind of threw me off, but now I got where that adds up to the 5.8 million. So thank you, Mr. Costa. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Any other questions by any commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Costa. I don't think we have anything else for you. Appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Actually, Madam Chair, I just had a quick question.
Yes, Commissioner Sanchez.
How does, I guess moving forward, how will mental health related calls be allocated? I know with the Crisis Triage Center coming in with the City of Las Cruces and their program, how will that be taken into account within MRVDA and the way you allocate the calls and the costs, et cetera?
Thank you, Commissioner. I did, in fact, it's a timely question. I was at the Las Cruces City Council yesterday, and they did a work session completely regarding 988 and 911 integration. And I believe that'll be online for anybody who wants to see that. But to answer your question, surprisingly, we've pulled data from when 988 came live on June, I believe it was June 16th of 2022, or July 16th, 2022, to present. And what we're seeing is really a straight line pretty much. We haven't seen a decrease overall in the number of calls that are coming to 911 that are behavioral health related. We expected to see some kind of an immediate dip, and we're not seeing that. I don't think we have enough data to statistically say anything or deduce anything yet, but it just may be that 980 is just really still new. But we would anticipate that at some point the call volumes for behavioral health type calls would decrease because people would dial 988 first instead of dialing 911. But right now, we're not seeing anything significant as a decrease.
Okay, great. And I mean, just if it's a 911 versus 988, that doesn't change kind of the cost or what you're seeing in terms of the budget, correct?
No, it's because the number of behavioral health calls are probably less than 1% of our total 911 calls. If you look at it, I think we probably get about 2,500, maybe to 2,800 911 calls that are related to behavioral health emergencies out of a total of 350,000 calls. So it's a small percentage.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Costa. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, I appreciate the
Madam Chair,
question.
I-
Commissioner Reynolds, yes.
I didn't have a question, but I think there's something that I would like Mr. Hugo to talk about. The distribution of calls between fire and ambulance or emergency services, it's still, what's the percentage of blend there?
The highest percentage of calls that we dispatch are law enforcement, and law enforcement probably about 75 to 80%. I can't give you the exact breakdown, but EMS and fire are pretty comparable, and they make up the other 20% of the calls that we dispatch.
Okay, so you're saying you get 50% fire calls and 50% EMS calls?
Excuse me, approximately. I can't give you the right exact numbers, but I can get it when I get back to my office and send it to you. They're, probably a few thousand from one another, but they're about even.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. And Mr. Costa, might I ask for you to share that with all the commissioners so that we can have it handy just in case?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll definitely share that data with the entire commission. And if I may add, before I leave, I made this offer to the Las Cruces City Council, and I make the offer to the Board of County Commissioners. We're right across the way from you, and we have what we call a sit-along program. It's probably similar to the Sheriff's Ride-Along program, where any of the commissioners want, you can sit with one of our dispatchers and actually see what happens during the call-taking process and the dispatch process. And we welcome you, and just let me know, and we can set up some dates and times for you to sit with us.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. All right, thank you very much. We will move on now to work session or agenda item number 13, Cooperative Extension Services Update regarding the fiscal year 24 funding request from the county. Ms. Teresa Dean. Good morning, Ms. Dean. How are you? That was a nice PowerPoint, by the way. I was looking at it last night.
Great. Well, good morning, Chairman Chupato, Board of County Commission, County Manager Macias. My name is Teresa Dean. I am the County Director for the Cooperative Extension Service. And this morning, I want to talk to you about our budget request, but kind of also to educate you about the Cooperative Extension Service. I want to start out by introducing you to our team. As I mentioned, my name is Teresa Dean. I'm the County Director. I also wear various hats where I am the 4-H livestock agent as well as the livestock agent. Our next is Jeff Anderson. He is our agronomy and horticulture agent. We have Eva Madrid, who is our 4-H youth development agent. B. Favela, who is our family and consumer science agent. And then finally, we have Diana Magallanes, who is our ICANN family and consumer science agent. So what is the Cooperative Extension Service? Hopefully by now, most of you guys know what it is, but in case you don't, we are the outreach arm of New Mexico State University's College of Agriculture, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences. So basically, we take all of the research and the things that are happening at the College of Agriculture, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences, and we take it out to the people in our community. Our mission is to improve the quality of life through practical research-based knowledge. And so we're providing education out into our various communities. There's an extension office just like ours in all 33 counties in New Mexico. If you don't know where our office is, we are in the very south corner of the Department of Health building. And so that's where our particular office is located. So we do work for New Mexico State University, but we are not housed on campus. We're housed out in the community. The Smith-Lever Act that was enacted in 1914 is kind of what established the relationship between our land-grant universities and our communities. And so it is a three-way partnership between county, state, and the federal government. And so that's why I'm here today, is because the first third of our funding does come from the county government. So our request for 2023-2024 year is, we are requesting $170,435.59. That is a slight increase from last year. We received $154,000 last year. And that increase is just to reflect the legislative increase for salaries to higher education. Because we work for New Mexico State University, if the state legislature does give higher education an increase, then it does trickle down to us as well. And so we have to come up with that funding somehow. So that's what the increase is for. It does not increase our O&M by any means. It is just based on that increase, as well as increase for promotions that our agents do go through. And so we have one going through a promotion this year, and we'll get an increase in his salary. We have also asked for an additional $68,000 for a full-time employee. And why we're requesting that is, we've seen an increase in educational type programs across the county. We're being requested more and more in all areas. In particularly our family and consumer science area, we've seen a major increase in that as we see the growing need for health and wellness programs across the county. We also, with the fentanyl and the opioid abuse happening right now, there's need for addressing that, and particularly how it affects families. So our job is mainly to educate people to see, to identify the problem and how we can help those families kind of spot the signs within their families and how it can, how can it affect them as a family. And also, this position would also help us address the youth development needs in our underserved audiences that the two of us just can't get to everybody. And so that's the reason for the additional full-time employee. So our total request this year from the county is $238,435.59. That would be matched by the state by giving us $198,841.10, and then our federal match would be $164,806.12. So 100% of your funding would stay here in Doñana County. The benefits of this is that you also have access to our state specialists that are funded through the state government, as well as any publications that are written by our specialists. We're able to provide that to the county as well. In addition, we have an ICANN program that is 100% grant funded. We received $227,681 annually from the ICANN grant that stays here in Doñana County. With that, we have 7 nutrition educators, and then Diana Magallanes, who is our agent. Those are all funded through that ICANN program. And so what ICANN is, it's an Ideas for Cooking and Nutrition. And so basically, they are nutrition educators going out and educating our community about, proper cooking, health, the healthy lifestyle choices and whatnot. We have 2 different programs with our ICANN. We have our FNET program. Doñana County and Bernalillo County are the only 2 counties that have the FNEP side of that. And so that program is a series-based program that is for adults who are like child care providers that take care of children on a reduced income. On the SNAP Ed side of things, it's an individual type program, standalone lessons, but it is for people who are reduced income. And so that's an additional dollars that do come to our county. We do provide, in this program, it's free free classes to anybody. We do taste testings. They do get certificates at the end of it, and we do provide incentives to try to help people come to our program. So it's a great program that's providing lots of healthy food and lifestyle choices throughout our county.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds?
sorry. Ms. Dean, I have a question about the slide. Is this the program that actually provides the training for cooking meals for people who are diabetics?
No.
Is that a different one?
No, this one is completely separate to that.
Thank you.
And before, thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Before we move forward, Ms. Dean, you mentioned that you have education programs for adults with reduced income that provide for childcare.
Yes, ma'am.
So where is the greatest need that you see within the county? What area is it? The southern part of the state, northern part of the?
So the majority of our programs in the ICANN program are in the southern part of the state, or southern part of the county is where the majority. We have some programs happening in Hatch, a few in Radium Springs, but the big majority are in the southern part of the county.
So if I ask you a percentage, would it
Oof.
be 50, 60% down south?
I would probably say probably 60%. About 60% down south.
And do you have an idea of how many individuals are?
So how this program is designed is they keep track of numbers of graduates. And so this past year, they graduated about 3,000 individuals. And so they have to graduate through a 6-week program. And so to try to get individuals to a 6-week program consistently is kind of difficult to do, but they have graduated 3,000 individuals thus far this year.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so on to our family and consumer science program. So this is where Commissioner Reynolds was asking about our diabetic program. So we do 2 classes that are designed just for diabetics. So you have to be a diabetic to come to this class. And so we do the Kitchen Creations program. This past year, we did 6 of those, 3 of those being in Spanish and 3 of those being in English. We graduated 227. Again, this is a series type program. They go through 4-week classes, and that's what it is. It's hands-on. It's teaching people how to prepare meals. They get a cookbook at the end of it, but how to prepare meals being diabetic or pre-diabetic. And so through that program, we reached 227 individuals through that program. We also do the National Diabetes Prevention Program, and it's a 12-month program for those individuals. So it's a very lengthy process for those, but we've seen great success. We do the evaluations through every one of our programs, and we've seen great success through our diabetes education. A lot of the doctors call and request our classes, and they're the ones that are providing the information to our clientele. So it's been a great relationship between the doctors here in town and our office. We also do programs on why everybody needs a will, the living well through inflation, and so teaching people, how to live in this new, world that we're living in and the inflation that has been, that's upon us. And so we're doing programs such as that. We're doing the Adverse Childhood Experiences program, the QPR, which is a suicide prevention program, building emotional coping skills. We're doing lots of different programs that deal with mental health, not only in the school system, but also through different agencies across town. So we're doing lots of different programs outside of just your traditional, like what we think of home economics is what Extension first started. It was the home economics. So we've kind of changed our shift to, what is our community really needing and such. she also does a lot of programs on youth education, nutrition education, and she picks 3 schools per year and goes and teaches the whole entire school on nutrition education and, the healthy choices for snacks and whatnot. Through that program, she's reached 1,300 youth this year. Of course, we also do the Ag Explorer program, which I can talk more about in a little while. So in addition, this past year, we contracted with the county. The county had the Salud y Vida con Amigos grant. And so we have contracted with the county to help them provide education on advanced healthy literacy, which was to help encourage behavior changes to prevent the spread of the COVID-19. And so we were helping to promote the indoor quality. You could see that little fan thing there. And so it was to promote indoor air quality. The majority of those programs are delivered in the northern part of Doñana County, so particularly in Hatch. We've also collaborated with we just recently started collaborating with the Agentes de Cambio. And so basically we're helping to train the promotoras with resiliency trainings, the post-COVID. And so we have agreed to continue to do that programming through, I think their grant ends in July. So in addition to that, she's also taking on training new promotoras. So it's almost like a Promotora 101 training. And she had her first training on March 18th, and she had 55 promotoras attend that training. And so once a month, she's doing a training. I think the next one is going to be on the QPR, which is our suicide prevention program. So Jess, our family and consumer science, which is my agent, is B Favela. So just B Favela alone, from July till current, she has reached over 31,000 people through the programs that she is providing. The Cooperative Extension Service also has the 4-H Youth Development Program. 4-H has 3 delivery modes. We have our traditional 4-H program, our school outreach program, and our special interest program. So alone in our 4-H traditional program, and that's where kids come, they sign up, they participate in different club settings. We have 335 youth that continues to grow every single day. We have 131 adult volunteers. And so I just wanted to point out, if our adult volunteers provide us 4 hours a year, that's $15,000 that they're giving back to the county through, the federal rate for volunteers. We also have 2 new school-based clubs. And so what we're finding is that the schools are really liking that experiential learning that 4-H does. And so we've got 2 schools, Lynn and, now I can't remember the Alameda. What's the one on Alameda Street? Central. Those are the 2 schools that have decided to do traditional schools after school. So it's part of their after school program, but it's a traditional 4-H program. Our school outreach, we go into the schools often and do different projects with them. Currently, we're doing the egg to chick. So we take fertilized eggs into the classroom and we incubate those eggs, and we take a fertilized egg and have chicks at the end. We reach a lot of kids through that. Teachers absolutely love it. It's a way for kids to learn science without realizing they're learning science, and they're having fun while doing it. So through our school outreach programs, we reach a little over 7,000 students per year through those efforts. As part of 4-H, we really promote community service and getting out into our community and helping those who need help. And so there's a list, I won't read it all to you, but there's a list of, just some of the recent collaborations that we have with different individuals in our community. Again, I won't go into this because I know where you guys are on a specific time frame, but you know, some of the activities we do as part of our outreach program, like I mentioned, we do our embryology project. We collaborate with different schools who are doing ag days and try to help them collaborate with different agencies across our community, as well as doing programs ourselves. We do many career days. We do a program called Shatter Lives in April. It's in Hatch this year. It's an alcohol prevention program that we collaborate with many different agencies across Doña Ana County to provide that program. And my agent, Eva Madrid, is the chairman for that program. The Ag Explorer and Ag Adventures field trip, we know we can't reach every single youth in our community, so we try our best to reach those underserved youth or those youth that aren't being served by the traditional 4-H program. And so we provide a field trip called Ag Explorer to the Farm and Ranch Museum. It's free of charge. We don't charge for the buses. We get funding through our Farm Bureau program and through the Farm and Ranch Museum. And then we do also collaborate with the New Mexico State Fair and do an Ag Adventure program. So those kids that are coming out to the New Mexico State Fair, they get some sort of education through that field trip as well. We're also collaborating different community events, you know, going to recruit about the 4-H program, let people know what we're all about and the different things that we can provide for them. You know, our traditional program, we do, you know, the livestock shows, the rodeos, the different competitions that we have, the different events like State 4-H Conference. It's a conference for our senior age members. We will be celebrating our 100th year this year. That's pretty exciting and lots of things happening there. And then we provide different project workshops. During spring break, you know, we realize that spring break is long now. And so the second week of spring break, we did a little project showcase and kids, you know, for 3 days, kids came in the morning, 8 o'clock and stayed till 4 o'clock. And we did different projects with the kids throughout the day so that the parents, you know, had a relief from their kids or, you know, those that needed a babysitter service, we kind of provided that for them for those 3 days. So, you know, just looking outside the box and seeing what the needs is in the community as far as youth development. On the Ag and Natural Resource side, we do a lot of one-on-one consulting with homeowners. So homeowners can call our office if they have any problems with, you know, their garden or their grass or their tree is dying, and we will go to their house and kind of help them identify the problem. We do, through New Mexico State University, we have a lab there that, a pathologist lab that they can take a plant sample if something's wrong with their plant or a grass sample, send it off, and they can identify what the problem is, and then we can help that specific homeowner. So we do a lot of one-on-one calls with the individuals here in our community. Due to the drought and due to the low pecan market this year, we are looking at some alternative crops. We're going to be doing some research on, it's called yellowhorn, which is a new oil nut crop. And so we are going to be looking at that. It's supposed to be extremely drought tolerant. And so we are going to be doing some research on that. We did apply through a grant from NMDA, so hopefully we can make it a little bit bigger than us just doing the research ourselves. We also have a Master Gardener program. Currently, there's 34 members in that Master Gardener program. Last year, we graduated 12 certified Master Gardeners and 11 interns. So as they graduate, it's a 16-week course. And so once they graduate from that 16-week course and pass, they become interns, and then they have to intern for a year. And once they meet all the requirements for the intern, then they become certified Master Gardeners. Those Master Gardeners and interns, they help us with the hotline. So twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, they come in and they answer phone calls. So people from the community know that they can call on Tuesdays and Fridays and talk to a certified person about anything horticulture, gardening, whatever it is. We also work with the farmers market to do an educational booth there at the farmers market, and that's all run by our master gardeners. And then we also do a lunch and learn once a month at the Brannigan Library. And so, and again, that's all, you know, you bring your lunch and come learn about gardening. We have specific topics on that. So through our Master Gardeners do keep track of their hours, and through that Master Gardener program, it is providing us $48,668.75 in volunteer hours as well. We also do hydroponics in the classroom, so it's an alternative to the school gardens. We get lots and lots of requests for school gardens in the school. The biggest problem is that we get it, you know, we get in there, we help them get their garden, but then they're out for the summer when it's time to harvest. And so we you know, did some things, came up with a design for that's easy to make for a hydroponics unit. And we started this going in the schools. One thing that we found was that the teachers didn't know how to teach it because there was no curriculum. And we researched and couldn't find curriculum. So our agent, Jeff Anderson, created a curriculum. He was working with the prison program. He would go in and they would do gardening at the prison pre-COVID. We haven't been able to get back in there post-COVID, but pre-COVID, he was going to the prison. Well, the drawing that you see there, he contracted with one of the prisoners to do all of the drawings for his curriculum. And so that's where that came from. And so currently we have 14 hydroponics units across the state or across the county, and they go anywhere from Chaparral all the way to Hatch. So they're spread out all over. Again, the biggest problem with those units is, you know, the schools don't have the money to pay for them. And so we have, you know, gotten small grants here and there to provide the schools with that unit free of charge. So that's the biggest hurdle that we have in getting those units out at this point.
And if I may inquire, please, how much is each unit? What is the cost?
So those, I don't know each specific unit, but those 14 we had a $7,000 grant. And so we were able to put those 14 units plus pay the guy for the curriculum designs. So I would say they're probably about $200 to put them. So it's a very inexpensive unit that we put together. In addition, our office collaborates very closely with our county's OEM department, and we are the ESF 11, the agricultural annex, and so we work closely with them. On October 10th, we had a cattle pot rollover on the interstate, and so because I am the ESF 11 Ag Annex contact, you know, I'm the first one that they call. And so we collaborate. Our job is to provide all of the resources that they need for that incident. And so, you know, we were able to provide gather up trailers to put those cattle in, and get with the fairgrounds to make sure that we could take those cattle to the fairgrounds once we safely removed them from the cattle pod. So we do things like that within our office too. We are first responders for our ESF 11. We also do trainings. We just recently did a training on a carcass management. We did a tabletop. And so basically we use Doñana County and all of the dairy row that we see going towards the southern part of our county. We used a tabletop exercise from our specific area. You know, in the case that something ever happened in that area and we had thousands and thousands of dead cattle, what are we going to do with those animals? Being on an interstate, people driving up and down that, it's not like we can just easily remove them. So we did a tabletop exercise in case something ever does happen. We at least have a plan as to how we're going to go forward. So with all of that being said, so for those of you that don't know how how we receive our funding now. So this is a spreadsheet that we do on a monthly basis that comes to our county. And so we provide the county with all of the deliverables that we make throughout the county. On the goal side, on the left-hand side, you can see that where our goals are. Those are the numbers that we have to reach. And then we bill the county for those deliverables. Once that goal is reached, we can no longer bill the county for those deliverables. So you can see our goal is to reach 28,358 individuals. Currently, as of the end of February, we have reached 265,076 individuals in the county. So we're going well above what is required of us. But with that, that is also why we are requesting an additional individual, because I feel like some of my agents are being overworked. They don't get a lot of days off because of the lots of different programs that they are providing. They're literally running from one program to another. So that is why we've asked, our total request for the county is $238,435.59. With that, you're also getting an additional $292,043 through our ICANN program, as well as our volunteer hours. And then you're also getting an additional $363,655 from our state and federal matches as well. So I think that's all I have. I will be open to any questions anybody might have, which I'm assuming you probably do.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to start if that's all right. I was looking through your Family and Consumer Sciences program. And so are you working with any individuals or any agencies throughout the county, for example, on anger management? And I guess I need that explained a little bit more, because there's different kinds of anger management, and so
it just depends on what the request is. So a lot of the requests are brought in by different agencies. And so luckily our Family and Consumer Science agent does have a degree in social work, and she does that on the side as well on the weekends and the nights. And so she does have that knowledge base. And so it kind of just depends on what the request is. It may be a request for, helping my child, lots of, may have anger management issues. It may be, I have a group of people who have anger management issues as an adult and their parents. So can you come do a program to our parents, our parenting program? So it just depends on what the request is and who it's coming from.
All right, well, back to my question. Are there any agencies with whom you're working? For example, La Casa has anger management classes for certain individuals that are experiencing domestic violence in their family or in their home or with their extended family.
I'm sure she does. I don't know exactly, without having to go back and research exactly all the different programs that she does. But I know she's collaborating with different agencies. To tell you specifically which ones, I wouldn't tell you the right ones if I tried.
All right, thank you.
Sorry about that. I can get that to you, though.
Commissioners, any questions, any comments? Commissioner Reynolds?
I just wondered, have any of the commissioners actually participated in some of these programs like the 4-H or anything? Because I have not. That's why I'm asking. Because I'm wondering because I have actually been participating now as an adult in some of their events out at fairgrounds and helping with scholarships and things like that, and also to attend their banquets. And what's really cool about what you do is the children, the teenagers actually run the whole program at the banquet. I mean, they pretty much put them in charge of everything, and all the adults do is supervise them to provide them the ability to succeed. And this program does this all over the county and actually participates in nationwide events as well. And we've been very fortunate to have a great team, leadership team at this organization to do this. I've also been at the luncheons where they've explained the ICANN programs and all of those a couple of times. And I have to encourage this board to take the time to get to know what this organization does, because if you look at the numbers, I mean, I didn't hear you say this, but the JPA that we have with your organization is based on a certain amount of numbers.
Correct.
And you guys blow these numbers out every year. So, I mean, I just can't believe how much you accomplish with the amount of resources you do, and the value and the benefits of all the programs that I've seen. I mean, and then to know that you are the go-to for any kind of animal crisis for the OEM department is just another reason to continue to support this organization. And thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it.
So one of the things I didn't mention is we work off of an advisory committee. And so we meet with our advisory committee, overall advisory committee yearly, and then each individual group has their own advisory committee. And so we work off of the needs of the community. And so that advisory committee helps us to identify the needs that we may not know about. And so, and that's where we're going out into the community and addressing, like, one of the ones that has been brought up is the drug use and abuse. And so, that's one that we will, in this next year, be addressing that need. So, thank you. If nobody has any other questions?
Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just curious, and I guess I see Ms. Michael here. And I know you had Ms. Dean, you had discussed about the promotoras and some of the other things that we do. Is that, I know there's a specific line item for the cooperative extension services that we pay for, at least from what I could tell, it's $154,100 that was approved. The increase in cost due to the increase in salaries and so on, and then plus the additional request for a position. I didn't know, is there anything else that HHS does within, I guess because there's one line item for the cooperative extension service, is there anything else that's contracted with, I guess, does it just come out of this one pot, or does anything come out of HHS department? I'm sorry, no, that's just from budget perspective, I'm just trying to understand.
Good, how are you?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jamie Michael, County's Health and Human Services Department. What you see here and what was described comes out of either county funding that is just in response to their request. So in addition to that, this last year, the county received some federal grant funding to address the health equity and COVID response. So out of that money, we gave an additional $84,000 to Cooperative Extension to do the promotora training and some of that additional work. So there's the one pot of money that's the base, that's just in response to what they ask for, but we also designated this additional money to help support and leverage the work of our department. So it was $84,000 in addition.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's because I think one of the things that was discussed in the new position was going to be talking about opioid education and some of the other things. So I was just trying to understand, where it's all going to, whether we'll just have one line item with the additional line, or do we look to contract that's going to come out of maybe HHS budget?
Commissioners, my recommendation would be to keep the base that they're requesting with the increase in salaries, because that's not something that we can get around. But I would recommend, if we're going to give them additional money for an additional position, that we do it more similar to what we did this year, where we identify a project, we identify the specific funding, and use the money for that specific project, such as anything that's going to be done with drug overdose, especially related to opioid or alcohol funds, because we already have the local DWI project. We know we have the opioid settlement money, and I think it would be better to have Cooperative Extension work as part of our department's implementation plan to do similar work versus the coordinated work that we do really well. But I think if we're going to do additional funding for those specific types of efforts, it should be more integrated and part of those types of funding opportunities instead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Michael.
And it is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that they are asking for an extension on that grant, the Healthy Living grant, that we already are getting the $75,000. So I don't know if more money would be coming from that or not. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
Thank you.
like I said, I'm just trying to understand where we're at, where we're going, and so I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Dean. Thank you, Ms. Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, hearing none. We are now moving into or convening in closed session. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to the attorney-client privilege to discuss pending and threatened litigation related to the national settlement with Teva and Algarin in the matter of the opioid litigation MDL 2804 as authorized by the Open Meetings Act 1015-1H7.
I have a motion regarding what Commissioner Shelter Hernandez stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Sanchez. Do I need to vote on that?
Yeah, we need a roll.
We need vote.
May I please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Murillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chair Chaparro?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We will now be convening in closed session. The time is 11:21. Are you going to answer? Okay. All right, the time is 11:39, and we're back in session.
Let the record reflect that nothing was discussed in closed session other than the items identified in the motion to go into closed session. Madam.
Any other business before the commission, commissioners? Any comments? Right, we are adjourned at 11:39.
Shattered lives.